Welcome, Brooke.
Hello.
It's great to have you here.
You think I'm fascinating?
I do. I do. I love starting these chats at the beginning, which for you is Carnarvon. Am I pronouncing that right?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I've never been there.
You got to say it with a bit like a twang though, like Carnarvon.
Carnarvon.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
I can
it.
do that. What was it like? What is it like? Tell me about where you grew up.
Yeah, Carnarvon's rural, so it's about 950, say, kilometres north of Perth.
Wow.
So about a 10-hour drive. If you're just cruising along, it's obviously a little bit longer. But I was born there in the regional hospital. Grew up with my mum. My mum was a single mum, and my nana. They were like inseparable. I have 4 other siblings, so there's 5 kids. And we also lived with my uncle. So we had a big mob of people in one little 3-bedroom house in Carnarvon. Carnarvon's like a bit of a fishing town. Like it's a kind of go through town, not a stop town.
Okay.
But growing up there, like it kind of had everything that, you kind of, need in times. I think like I'm glad I grew up in a country town because it helped me use my imagination as a kid. I wasn't surrounded by the city. I wasn't distracted by, big shiny things. I, grew up in the bush and kind of had to make do with what I had. So, yeah, pretty much Carnarvon's like, it's got the coast there. It's bush. Yeah, but yeah, I guess my childhood was a bit of a weird one.
I do want to get to that in a second.
Yeah.
You're a Nunga Yamachi woman,
Yes.
which actually really interests me. The first story I ever wrote for Good Weekend, like 10 years ago, was about the Nunga and specifically like why they are so good at football. Like, basically, every club or, every mob around Australia is represented by, maybe a couple of Larrakia men, few Tiwi,
Yeah.
and the Nunga at the time I was writing this story had like 24. They just had this.
Dude.
They were this spectacularly overrepresented group in the league. Somebody called it like an astonishing anomaly, and I wanted to find out why. So I went to Perth to sort of look into it, and one Nunga guy that I spoke to there told me he thought it was because of a certain fierceness that stemmed back to one word, which was winyan, which he said meant weak or soft. And he said, if you're a Nunga, you cannot be winyan. You have to stand up, you have to speak up, you have to fight. Is that something you observed in your community? And I guess by extension, is that something you feel in your bones?
I absolutely love the word winyan. Like, I grew up with it, and there's another word called kunyi. So you couldn't be kunyi and you couldn't be winyan because, like, that was... Well, I mean, it's got good and negative connotations, obviously, because it is instilling a bit of, like, shame, but then there's a bit of a competition behind it. It's like you want to be the best because you don't want to have the shame of being called winyan. But there is a fierceness to it. I think, for me, like, footy has been a huge part of my life growing up. I played it most of my life. I was one of the only girls playing in Carnarvon on my brother's team because there wasn't girls' teams back then. And then I actually looked into my heritage, and there's this team called the Invincibles, which is one of the first Aboriginal cricket teams. And one of my great-grandfathers is part of that, George Blurton.
Oh, wow.
And he was also, so he was written about because he was a dual athlete, basically good at cricket and good at footy, and he was an absolute superstar. And I think it runs sort of in the Blurton family, to be honest, because like most of my family are all very like sporty and just naturally athletic. And I'm so glad because that kind of drives you to have a bit of competition, but also gives you a bit of aspiration and inspiration to do something. And AFL, I think, is like every little kid's dream, I think, in Perth. Like, not like every kid, but I think, that's an overgeneralization. But I think most Noongar kids just want to play footy. Yeah. Like, they just love it so much. I mean, Melbourne is like the equivalent. Obviously, this is like the home of... Well, I wouldn't say it's a home of AFL, to be honest, because we all know that AFL came back from Marngrook, which is a traditional Aboriginal game we used to play. And I think, yeah, we are like natural athletes. But yeah, I don't want to be Winyan, like ever. Like if someone called me that, I'd be like so offended. I'm like, but yeah, no. I grew up. So my family in Nunga, which is actually from the Perth Southwest region. My grandmother's country is Balladon country, which is northern York, Quairading, all around that area, and. That's where most of my Blurton side, my mum's side, grandmother's side are all buried and together. But I don't know why we ended up in Carnarvon. I was like, that's a long way from home.
When I went to Perth for that story, I loved also just learning all of the kind of lore and traditions around the Nunga. Little things like I was told the Nunga don't play with fire or draw in the sand after dark, and they don't whistle at night because they don't want to alert the wira, the bad spirits. Who was it that kind of shared those sorts of stories or parts of your culture with you? Like, how did you learn it?
My whole family, my mum, my nan, my uncle. My uncle was the one that was the most scariest, and he used to tell the biggest yarns. These are stories that have been passed down, and I'll probably pass them down to my kids, but whistling at night, it was just like a no-go zone. And I remember as a kid in Carnarvon, we'd be riding our bikes, and this is what I miss about, being an adult now, but as a kid, like your whole street was like all your cousins and uncles and aunties. Like your house was just surrounded, so you could just basically house hop and just walk into your auntie's house and then see if who was there, and you're always hanging out with some family. I miss that, but so you'd be down the road and you'd be like, oh no, the sun's going down, and you'd have to leg it home because you'd be so scared. But we used to, I don't even want to say it, honestly, it's so ingrained in me, I don't even want to say it, but like we had like the featherfoot or like the wood archie, and those two things were like these Aboriginal Dreamtime stories, but also like these creatures that ingrained to make sure that you got home safe, and that you were also following the rules and the traditions that are passed down. And so yeah, the sun would go down and we would like leg it home, and I'd be like running before, and whistling at night, absolutely no go. I don't even do it now, and I get so scared when people do it. But then also the other one you said, don't draw in the sand, that still is around. And even just like saying the names, like I just don't like saying the names.
Featherfoot. It sounds terrifying.
Yeah. I actually worked on a film recently, and it's kind of based around that creature. Similar, like everyone's got a different creature. The different mobs have one particular, I'd say like monster, that they're scared of, and they all have a different name for it, but ours were obviously that. And I think it's quite universal in a sense, like the stories that you're told, to not maybe obviously terrify you, but also to like keep you safe. Like I think that's the thing around it, is to keep you safe and like have safety.
Now you had what I imagine was significant trauma as a child. It sounds like your mum and grandmum passed away when you were just 11 years old.
Yeah.
You've spoken before about how, I guess, it was hard after that to find models for emotional intelligence or communication. How did you ultimately kind of get through that, and where did you find those voices to guide you through?
I think mostly at school, which, I know that the education system isn't always necessarily set up for First Nations kids, but in my experience, I really loved school. I really loved learning. I always really wanted to be a lot at school. In my early childhood, I do have complex trauma, and I do actually, talk about it quite freely, because I feel like I'm always doing soul work and trauma work, and you're always constantly working on something. Like I didn't choose to have intergenerational trauma. Like unfortunately it was something that I have in my family, and I'm trying to break the cycle. So, working on myself is really important to that. And to also not inflict that on my future life and my children's lives as well. But I think most of the things that I learned in terms of like role modeling came from school, and were teachers that actually saw a lot of potential in me and actually really inspired me, and at some point also taking me on in year 11 and 12. So I had this teacher called Jo, and she was amazing, and she saw that I was having a really tough time at home. So people, I mean, if you don't know the full story, basically my mum and nan died when I was 11 and I had to move from Carnarvon to Perth, and I was supposedly having to live, no, I was supposed to be living with my father who's English, but unfortunately he wasn't also in a very stable condition of his life, and so I actually went and lived with my stepmom, which is his ex-partner, and she was a great role model to a certain degree, and I think there's complex relationship there where, you know, I'm just a little brown girl that's like literally rocked up on her doorstep, and she wasn't prepared for it. She didn't have the emotional intelligence to deal with that. She had 2 kids that she also had to deal with that were her own, so it's a lot to take on a third, and to have that so, you know, unexpected, and then also being female and also being black and also having complex trauma, also having complex grief issues, like, so, you know, I've just lost my mum, so she just felt like she needed to show up, and that was a beautiful thing that she did, but there was also like a bit of immaturity in terms of like how she parented me, really, and we've spoken about this, we're open about it, and we don't dishonor that, but we move on from it and we go, you know, this was our relationship. So I sort of became independent at 15, and then at school, like, school was just kind of where I wanted to be. It's kind of sad, but I loved school so much because it was stable. I had teachers that were absolutely awesome. I went to like a really low socioeconomic public school that I could really shine in the way that I needed to, because I wasn't being outnumbered, or as in like I wasn't being, you know, when you go to a big school, like, some kids get lost in the system. Totally. For me, like, I was one of only 3 kids to graduate high school, or to even graduate from that school. And yeah, anyways, my teachers were huge role models in my life. Obviously I owe my life to Jo Warren. Her and I still talk. She's amazing. And then from there, I guess my inspiration was people that I thought I wanted to be like, whether that was in the media, whether that was just superstars, whether that was AFL people, like, yeah, I just kind of role modeled their actions.
I'm always curious about
that was very long-winded, I'm so sorry.
Not at all, we love the detail. Yeah, I'm always curious about what it must be like to grow up Indigenous in this country, and I saw an Instagram post of yours recently that I wanted to ask you about, just because it began with these words and didn't kind of go anywhere afterwards. It said, "To the person who told me I'd amount to nothing but Centrelink payments."
Yeah.
Who said that, or is that a kind of general vibe that you experience as a young Indigenous person?
I've heard that so many times. Like, okay. I have seen my mother go through that. I've seen my nan also go through that. I've seen my brothers also experience that, and that breaks my heart. To the person, yes, they know exactly who they are, and I'm hoping that they see it in some pettiness way. Just because I was just trying to do my best, and even in my moments of weakness and not doing so well, that was the commentary that I was getting. And I think that is just very what's the word? I think it's just something that is just a universal experience for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. It's just so frustrating. Like, that is what people go to. And I saw one of my friends recently, her name's Courtney Ugal, and she had the similar thing in a TikTok video, and she was like, I'm a CEO of a business. So I don't know where you're coming from, but like, this is just a constant stereotype and judgment that we constantly have. And I'm like, I'm working like 7 jobs here.
Yeah.
I have not received Centrelink like since I was in high school, and I was living independently, and I didn't even want to, because even before that, like, I'd seen the judgment and the constant stereotyping that my family had received. And the thing is, like, I pay my taxes, I have my own business, I pay my own superannuation, I do all the things that I think is right, and that still happens, and I'm like so frustrated, because it's like I've got thick skin to deal with it, but this is a constant thing that's happening in communities still, like, and it's like, well, when you're fighting against systems that weren't built for you, it's like, what are you meant to do?
Yeah.
Like, when I think about my personal experience with commentary like that, I just think like the referendum in 67, my mum's mum, my nana, was born in 1940. So she was only, when I turned 27, which is 5 years ago, no, 4 years ago, math ain't nothing, I was like, wow, that's an achievement, because 27 years of my grandmother's life, she wasn't actually like a person. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't exist as like an actual like legitimate person for me in my mind. I think like the fact that there's all these systems and the Aborigines Act, and like it's just like the white policy, yeah, and still people make that commentary like as if we get free cars, free houses, free shit. I'm like, no, it's not the case.
We forget how recent history is, don't we?
No, I forget. Yeah, people do forget how, like, I would say in terms of like, we're not a young country. First Nations people have been here for a very long time. The youngness is the systems. That's the thing, that's the young part. And those systems aren't, they haven't been for everyone. Like, I was having this conversation, sorry to go on a bit massive tangent, but I was having this conversation with a friend, because under an x-ray we all have the same bones, unless you've broken some, which I have for footy. But under an x-ray we all bleed, we all have the same bones, but it's so crazy to think, like, me and you, we sit across the table together having this conversation, we're exactly the same person. We have different personalities, we have different looks. The fact that my rights have been dismissed and dishonored, I don't know where you come from. I'm sorry if you're a mob. I'm sorry. I'm just classifying you as a white person. That's so...
Which is fair.
Sorry.
Accurate.
Yeah. But I didn't even ask. That was a prejudgment. I'm so sorry. I take that back. But, like, I just think, like, yeah, I think why were we not allowed to go into the same pubs or in the same places or have the same rights? Like, if it was solely just... Yeah, I can't get my head around it. I don't know. It just makes me... I just don't understand. I do understand. Obviously, my whole body understands. But the fact that people are still so racist in this country and still so dismissive of the truth of this history, it just doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, sorry, going on a tangent. Probably putting more of an emotional part of it.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Always Was Tonight, which aired last week on ABC. Tony Armstrong is talking about wanting to take the show to series. How did it compare to you for other things that you've done on screen? And if it did go to series, is that something you'd want to be involved in?
Yeah, I think what we've seen from the show is it's making a little bit of noise, and I think and you know, Uncle Ernie and I talk about this a lot. Like, it's so to the point where you're like, you have to laugh. Like, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And I think, you know, we've seen that us making noise and saying what you're doing is wrong isn't getting that. It's not getting. No one's getting the point. So we might as well just like laugh about it into a point where it's like, it's not the issues and everything is not laughable, but making it into more of a satirical comedy, it's like, okay, well, this is actually legitimately happening. Like, the cost of living, young Aboriginal children as young as 10 being in prisons. Like, these are just headlines that people have like said, and we're just not like twisting it, but we're making light of shitty things that have happened. And I think people do that in their normal life. I would love it to be a series, because I think for me, it's like the Australian media just never really portrays Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the right light. There's always something negative about it. It's like never, like, I just feel like Tony Armstrong is one of the most, I don't know, I just love him because I think he's got the courage that we probably haven't had to do something like this, and I'm so proud of him, and I'm proud of myself for backing him and backing everything that we've put into the show. So yeah, I feel like we will see.
Let's go to your first TV experiences on The Bachelor, Bachelor in Paradise, and The Bachelorette. I'm just wondering, as the first Indigenous and bisexual Bachelorette, you had to carry a kind of burden of representation then. Has anything kind of changed in the years since for you?
I don't see it as a burden. I mean, I see it as a responsibility, because it's like, I'm really proud of my culture and I'm really proud of my sexuality, and I'm also really proud that I've made a life for myself from what I had to what I have now, to be honest. Like, I feel like when I signed up to do it, I sort of had already planned it in 2018, like, you guys need this representation. I'm not just saying as part of the Bachelor franchise, I'm saying as in Australian media. It's like more like young people need to see different diverse voices and faces on TV to understand, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel understood, or to maybe offer curiosity to whatever they're navigating in life. And I think Australian media don't really do that well. Like, not to like really, shit on it, but I think for me, when I got given the role, I knew exactly what my responsibility was, and what I was doing in terms of like representation, and I also knew what this would do for a lot of people, and I also knew that it was going to make a huge amount of noise, but also be a good thing. I just backed myself and I went for it, and I'm really proud of myself for it, because the amount of messages that I have gotten over the 8 years that I've been in this world, 8 years that I've been in the media world, which is not a long time, very, very short time, but I have made quite an impact in terms of people's lives, in terms of people being able to express themselves sexually and also culturally. I also put a lot of things on the map. I'm not to say like I'm some bloody spokesperson or anything like that, but I get invited to the table now, and like I'm excited because now I'm creating my own tables. I'm so sick of having to like wait for an invite. I'm like, well, you know what, let's just go for it here. So anyways, but like in terms of 2018 of going on a heteronormative Bachelor franchise show to a guy who was uncommitted and actually humiliated most of the girls that actually went on that show, I feel very, very grateful that I've built what I have out of that.
What do you do to protect your own mental health? I mean, you obviously, a quick scan of your socials would reveal that you work out, you eat well, you place a lot of value on wellness generally. Am I right in thinking that you paint as well?
I love painting, yeah.
How did you pick up that?
My grandmother, I feel like she was always painting, especially also when she got sick and was like not able to move a lot and less mobile. She would paint. I feel like Nunga painting obviously there's different mobs who have different styles of painting, and my nana was a dot painter, and she was one of the most talented artists that I know, and never sold any of her work, always gifted them, and I just remember sitting with her and just watching her, and I have only one of her pieces and no one will ever see it because it's so sacred to me. But I just really enjoyed the process and I guess the mindfulness that comes with painting and art, and traditionally how much it means to Aboriginal people. I think for me, I didn't really appreciate art until more maybe into my adult life. Just what it does for your mental health. Like, I don't sit still, and the only time I really sit still is if I'm painting. I have a little sketchbook, and I take it on my flights, and I just sit and draw. And I just, if I'm I'm an anxious flyer, and I fly a lot. So yeah, drawing for me is like a centering and it's sort of a grounding practice. And I do take wellness really quite seriously because I'm fighting an age gap here. I'm fighting the fact that I'm 20 years less likely to die more than an average Australian human person. It's kind of, it's horrific. So, I have to take those things seriously.
Painting brings me to another topic, and that's
course.
Going Places with Ernie Dingo, the SBS and NITV travel show that I mentioned, which is returning on Feb 20. I was given a media screen of one episode fixated on Karajini National Park. You went out to the mining town of Tom Price and met the hyper-realist painter Jenna Pickering. Did you pick up any tips for your own art from that?
She is one of the most amazing artists that I've actually seen in such a long time. In terms of portraiture, like, I thought she was incredible to interview, but also just to hang out with, because in the time that we hung out, she did work, and yeah, I just thought, wow, this is extremely talented. And I think also, like, seeing someone really appreciate Tom Price for what it is. And, like, I guess I've been to Tom Price so many times. I'm like, oh yeah, like, I appreciate this place, but I'm like, oh, you make me want to appreciate like, you know, the serenity, I know it's a mining town, and again, like, I don't really agree with mining, but she finds the beauty in art and life there. And yeah, I think just being on Going Places this year is such a surreal experience. Like, working with someone that you literally idolized when you were growing up. Like, Ernie Dingo, like, I call him uncle because he's literally my uncle, but like, he's Yamaji, and so we have family connections, but like, he's like been my inspiration growing up as a kid, and he's still my inspiration growing up as an adult, and he'll always be my inspiration. Just the way that he connects with people, the way that he has time for people, the way that he has now this, you know, this show going for the last couple of years. Like, he cares about the things that matter most, and I think he makes me return to them often. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
It absolutely does. So I also saw that you started a run club in December. Now, I love this, and this is where I go to, like, shameless plug territory, because I've just published a book called Run for Your Life, a year-long journey.
Congrats.
Asking why we run. Thank you. So I'd be an idiot not to ask you, why do you run? Like, what do you get from it?
I feel like the thing that I want to say is I'm running away from my problems.
No? Plenty of people do
so
that.
Yeah, I am running for my life. Well, luckily, I mean, have always been a runner playing footy, but I actually had the opportunity to interview someone on Going Places that, you know, really, really inspired me again. That role modeling, that emotional intelligence, just the humility that this man, I can say, has for running, really just sparked my love for it, and actually, I just reminded me what it does for my life. I started running because I couldn't play footy anymore, because obviously I had to give up footy for my career. It takes me to places I'll never dream of before, but I don't have time now to commit to playing footy. So what's the next best thing? Is running. So yeah, I started a queer run club called the Lavender Club, and it has been such an amazing journey, because living away from home in Melbourne from Perth, I had such a queer close community playing footy in Perth, and I sort of lost that, obviously, coming here. So I missed it, and I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity to, like, get people moving their bodies, not focused on pace or competition, but more like doing something that we all know we won't regret, because you never regret a run, unless you're into yourself.
You can dread a run,
yeah,
but
you can dread it.
Always feel better afterwards.
You do always feel better, and so yeah, I started that, and I'd be really interested to know what the book is about. So, yeah, I mean, I have an amazing community so far. We're building like 25 people.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the first
very
go
quick.
For a month.
Yeah.
Month of nearly 2 months, but like, yeah, I really just wanted to build a little community, and I thought, what brings people together? And
let's jump back to Going Places for a sec. So I called you a traveller in the pod intro, and that's because you are constantly going places. In the past few months, everywhere from like London to Houston, I think. So what are you most looking forward to about a travel show that's set in like regional Australia?
Funny enough, I'm actually such a homebody. So the fact that my job is travel is kind of crazy, because, yeah, I have this tattoo, and I feel like it was kind of it's not a bad omen, but it was a manifestation that I was going to spend half my life on planes. So, and I think for me, having a show that is focused on travel, but also obviously Indigenous voices and is coming from Indigenous perspectives in Australia is a great opportunity, really, to be honest. Like, we have the best, I would say, hidden gems of places in the world, like in this country, that are so sacred, and we have amazing voices that could be shared and acknowledged in those places. So the fact that I get that opportunity to do that is crazy. And obviously for me, I'm just like so sick of talking about my own story. I mean, I love sharing and doing pods like this, but I've told my story and it's out there. I publish Big Love. I feel like I want to share other people's voices and I want to share other people's stories, because I think there's just so much beauty out there in what people are doing. And if I get the opportunity to somewhat elevate them in any capacity with my platform, then of course I'm going to do that. So it is very, very, like, I'm very grateful to be a part of the show, especially working alongside Mark Cole-Smith, Ray and Ernie. Like, yeah, they're just all very inspirational people and have their own different style of like sharing stories. And I do too. I mean, I love the more vulnerable stories, as you know. Like, I like getting sort of deep. But what I want for this, I guess, to come out of it is that people listen. Full stop.
Love it. This copy of the book is for you.
Thank you.
But I did want to ask one final question, which is about books, and you just mentioned yours off the top there.
Yeah, that
Big
little
Love.
plug was a bit of audacious of me.
It was a perfect segue. It's literally written down here. You published a memoir in 2022 called Big Love. So look, that's 4 years ago. So you would have been 27 at the time. If life is a book that's kind of constantly being written, what do you see in your future that you'll need to add to a reprint, to a later edition? Like, what's the dream kind of epilogue to the life of Brooke Blurton?
Oh, that's an amazing question, by the way. That is a really good question. Because I was so young. I mean, I still am. And I'm only just getting started in terms of, you know, what I would like to achieve whilst I'm on this beautiful, spinning, hot earth. Yeah, Big Love for me, it's kind of ironic because, like, I'm not very big, but I think my passion and my heart, I feel, is the thing that kind of comes through that book. I don't know if it can get any bigger, but I would see in my future that people understand how much I love being Aboriginal. I love people. I just want equality and like equity for every single person that lives in this beautiful country. But I also wanted to feel like a bit more united in a sense. And I think for me, like, I just would love to be able to like articulate, express, and I guess portray, like, we have such a potential to be united, to be together, and be a really strong country, in quotation. But I think there's a missed opportunity because we won't acknowledge the truth-telling. And I think for me, like, truth-telling is so important to anyone's life, you know, but I think it's so important to history. So yeah, I think for me, like, I would love to continue writing more. I wrote two like adult teenage fiction, and they're just more queer stories. And I love them. They're so good, but you never like feel like amazingly good about your work. Like, I feel like I put things out and I'm like, oh, this could be better. It could always be better. But yeah. I feel like I just need to accept, you know, and you've written a book, so you understand. So it's like, you're always going to critique your own work. But I think for me, like, the next step is like being able to like show the love, show the care, show the consideration of people, to understand that we're all different, we're all diverse, but we need to like understand that diversity is really important for voicing and for people to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel loved. So that's why I was Big Love in the first place, is because love is what we're all craving, like, let's be honest. I don't know about Andrew Bolt, but sorry, side note. No, so yeah, I mean, I always make this joke that it'll be Big Lover. So Big Love and Big Lover is part 2. But that's just a silly joke.
Fantastic.
Yeah, anyways.
Brooke Blurton. Little person,
guys.
big heart, big life, big future.
Hopefully.
Thanks very much for joining us on Good Weekend Talks.
Thanks, Conrad. I appreciate it.